Oh, hi there. I was just editing one of my podcasts here. I'm Dylan James Weaver, but you can call me Dylan, and this is the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. Hey, let's see how this thing sounds. Hold in! Okay, so it needs a little more work, but that's the exciting part, because you never know what you'll discover along the way. Oh, don't take my word for it, though. You can find out for yourself when you listen to today's Wad Fam Chalk Pod. Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
And we are here this week talking about episode 7.
7.
Promises.
The
Promises.
days in which God created the universe.
Promises,
7.
promises.
Promises, comma, promises.
Yes. 7 24-hour periods. And actually, he did it in 6, Andrew.
You're right. The 7th was just for resting.
Indeed.
Don't fact check us.
No, you can fact check that. I'll stand by it. This is it's once again on the first album, but kind of. It's the first episode to air in 1988. It aired January 2nd of that year. It is directed by Phil Lawler and Steve Harris, written by Phil Lawler solo, and also starring Phil Lawler inexplicably.
Yeah. Somebody must have gotten sick, right?
So, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. We don't really have anybody of note cast-wise for this episode, aside from Phil Lawler playing himself as a friend of Chris who is forgetful.
Mm-hmm. And a partier. Right.
Yes. But a partier who also likes to bowl.
Very Big Lebowski of him.
Apparently. This is pre-Big Lebowski, so maybe he inspired it.
I think that's canon.
I mean, look, I can live with that.
Ask the director.
It's also this weird thing. Chris lives in Odyssey in these early episodes, which is always baffling.
Yeah.
But yeah, this episode, I think we will have stuff to talk about. I think is pretty good. It also is the least episode we've maybe ever covered. That's not true. We've covered less episodes, but this episode is so bare bones.
Yeah.
It is like 15 minutes tops.
Yeah, with like sketches and everything.
It is, right. It's 19 minutes, but it takes like a good 4 minutes till it starts. And then it has credits at the end and an interlude in the middle.
Yep.
And we'll get into more of like kind of the absurdity of it as we go. But before we can do that, I do need to roll the promo.
On the next adventure in Odyssey,
we're going to take a look at Odyssey through the eyes of Connie Kendall and hear what happens when she makes a promise Whit doesn't think she can keep.
I know it wouldn't be easy, but we just have to make a promise to ourselves that we're going to change and then stick to that promise.
A promise, huh? Well, I'll believe it when I see it.
Next time on Adventures in Odyssey.
Man, the music on those promos.
Yeah.
The synth just makes me want to cuddle up to a warm copy of the ESV. I'll tell you what.
Oh, man.
Oh, no.
What version do you think John Avery Whittaker uses?
Well, I'm presuming he can speak Hebrew.
Right, of course.
So
that's the answer.
Yeah.
Yep, you're right.
If somebody
You're
were
right.
to ask him, I'm sure he probably has like a Hebrew, a KJV, and an ESV on him at all times. That's my guess.
I don't know. It does seem like a person of the people, so he might rock an NIV sometimes.
I think so, with kids, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think he's definitely smart enough to know the strengths of the different translations and everything like that. But he definitely hates the message.
I mean, everyone in Odyssey does. I'm surprised there's not an episode hating the message.
I wouldn't put it past them. They've got the club now.
Yeah, I mean, that should be an episode which is just like, boy, can you believe this new translation of the Bible called
The Statement. They paraphrase everything. Psalms is just a rap music.
Connie's like, I don't know, I kind of like it. And they're like, no, Connie, you're dumb.
Yep.
You shouldn't like this thing. It's actually bad. There's some... And then we need like a Bono stand-in for them to be mad at as well.
Oh, yeah. Wait, is Bono a fan of the message?
There's a whole, like, Bono is like tight with the guy who like spearheaded the message, and they did a bunch of like promotional videos for the message together.
Interesting. Okay. I can't say that I would have seen that coming, but it doesn't seem off-brand at all.
See, I know this as the son of a massive U2 fan who then became a massive U2 fan.
Fair.
It's unavoidable.
Much like me and the Zeppelin.
That is what they say.
But a lot less biblically backed, unfortunately. God was nowhere near me in my father's discussions of Led Zeppelin.
Yeah. You play one of those records backwards, Andrew. That's going to be the end of you.
Yeah, the demon comes out of the record and then in through your ears.
Yeah. And that's fact.
And that's how you die.
Yep. Listen to our episode on 60-something if you don't believe us.
Mm-hmm. I actually die on air.
But then 3 days later, he came back.
Yeah. They rolled away the old card table. And there I was.
No, it's just a
Shining
really
in white.
big record.
Ooh. What record is sealing my tomb? Hitler's Inferno, probably.
I don't know, maybe something by the Mountain Goats.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. So, yeah, after a million years of Chris and Phil goofing.
Yeah. Well, okay, so Chris is waiting for Phil because they're supposed to go bowling. Whatever. Great. He's not there. He doesn't show. Chris goes to the payphone or whatever to make a call. We get the Wit intro, and then we come back, and very hazy Phil is...
Hazy Phil.
Yeah, Hazy Phil. That's what we call him around these parts. Does not remember, and he was at a party or something late last night, and he apologizes about promising to do that, and that's the whole theme of the episode, because they said it twice in the title, so it has to be.
They did indeed say it twice. So, yeah, then the episode actually begins, and it's a framing device of Connie writing a letter to her friend Marcy, who's in California.
Another thing worth noting, this is introduced by Chris
my
apparently
word.
being in the room. And she says,
This doesn't make any sense. So, Chris is established in this episode as a character in Odyssey.
Yes.
And then she's like, Connie's invited us to listen as she writes, as long as we don't make too much noise. And I'm like, excuse me?
Yeah.
This framing device just keeps getting worse and worse.
I'm just like this, the story paints the picture that she's like writing at a desk in her room by lamplight, and Chris is just standing in the corner.
Yeah. Is Chris Connie's guardian angel?
I guess the only way to know for sure is if she dies before the show ends.
Wow.
They're the only two ongoing characters, right?
Yep, they are. Chris is a character.
So, yes.
So, yeah, we talk about, Connie's writing to her friend Marcy in California, talking about how boring this is, talking about, instead of watching paint dry, she says watching bread mold, which is hilarious, and I love that turn of phrase.
A lot more interesting. I would be much more interested in watching bread mold grow than...
Yeah, I mean, if it's like a time lapse, I think in real time that would be pretty rough.
Depends on if you have a microscope. That could be fun.
That's true. I was not...
Give us $3 a month to watch us look at bread mold in a microscope.
That will not happen. But, maybe we'll review a YouTube video where someone else does.
Always leave that door open, Dylan.
She also reveals that they got a golden lab, which they named Kitty, which is funny name, good bit. I don't think
Connie has a dog ever comes up again. I remember this bit, and I don't remember any other instance of Connie having a dog.
Yeah. This episode's a weird one. There is some stuff later on that is like cemented into my brain. This part fully lost on me.
Yeah, the Tom and Whit scene that happens next.
Oh my word!
Completely forgot.
So it's then right. Connie starts talking about naming the lab Kitty was Whit's idea, and I'm like, come on, really? Was it? I don't buy that for a second. And then it's her excuse to then talk about Whit, and she's talking about Whit and Tom, and there's this thing where it's like she's talking about like her friends. In Odyssey, and then it's just Whit and Tom, and I'm like, that's a bummer.
Yeah, it's on you, Focus. It's on you, Phil. You didn't give her a female peer friend for 30
any
years.
Peer friend. Like, it's so bad. She has Marcy, who she's writing to, and she's writing to Marcy to talk about two men who are her grandparents' age.
Comfortably. Yeah.
And then we flash back into the scene of Tom and Whit doing the third episode in a row of a Who's on First.
Yep. Where Tom doesn't understand that Whit wants to read Robert Louis Stevenson,
word,
famous children's author.
Yeah,
author
Tom
of Treasure Island.
Insinuates you going on a hot date tonight, Whit, which is very funny.
Yeah. Love to see it.
And then Whit's like, yup, a date with a book. And Tom doesn't understand this concept, and they just do the same bit again.
Yeah, for 30 seconds or for a full minute.
Yeah. And I would like to, at this point, address an incredible anecdote from the complete guide. Ooh. The later one.
Thanks, Johnny Youngblood.
Interesting. It's the official guide. The complete guide's the original one, but at the top of the pages it says the complete guide, even though it's the official guide. I never noticed that. Is that true in both printings? It is not.
Interesting.
All right. Anyways, so reading from the official guide, there's this note that I think is incredibly interesting, which is the promises conversation between Whit and Tom, the one we just talked about, originally appeared in the first Family Portraits episode. They reused audio from that episode.
That's fair.
For Connie's flashback.
Familiar. Yeah.
Which is just flat out interesting.
Cool. Makes me want to cover Family Portraits.
Hey, maybe we'll do that someday. But it's so funny that it's in an episode that has 15 minutes of content.
Yep.
3 of those 15 minutes are recycled from another episode.
Yeah.
I also, it's a flashback that it's so Family Portraits is truly cannot be canon because Connie was not there observing it.
Yeah.
The first time.
Yeah. What? You make a very interesting point, Dylan.
But maybe she was just observing it like Chris does in this episode.
There's got to be a fourth dimension of spectral existence in Odyssey where you can be present but not actually be there.
Yeah. Hey, sign me up for that. I'd be a fly on Connie's wall. So
that's the title of my fanfic. I've actually been thinking about writing Odyssey fanfic.
Do it.
Yeah.
But then don't tell me it's yours.
Okay.
And bring it to one of the readings.
All right, maybe over the summer.
Yeah, mix it in with some of the other ones. If you don't know what we're talking about, subscribe to our bonus show in which you can hear Andrew and I read Adventures in Odyssey fanfic every once in a while, and it is a great time in my opinion.
It's a blast. It's a blast to make. I mean, I like making this show, but the bonus content stuff is just pure joy for me.
Look, guys, it's only $3 a month.
Yeah, right.
The link is in the description of this show, or you can just go on Spotify or go to our Anchor page, wherever you want to do. You get 2 episodes extra of us talking each month, and I think it's fun. Plus, we're nearly offsetting the cost of the club.
I know, isn't it great?
So,
So then it cuts back to Connie writing the letter, and she goes into more about who Whit is, brings up the fact that he used to run an encyclopedia company. Yes and no, he's still on the board.
I think she says he used to own it.
Used to own
and I think he doesn't technically own it anymore because, like, it's the board.
Yeah.
So, he's the chairman of the board, but he's not actually the owner in the same way that, like, you know, a CEO doesn't own a company.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like, it's, yeah. She's right. I don't think she should be this right.
No. No, certainly
she's almost too right. Maybe she's got another career here.
And she's talking about Whit and how he relates to the kids and how, you know, despite the fact that he's so much older than she is, they get along really well. And then they cut to Whit duping a child.
Right.
About him not physically being there, and he's like, "Oh, I can confirm this to you logically," and then he just lists all of the statement, or like a bunch of different cities, and being like, "Well, I'm not there, and I'm not there, and if I'm not in either of those two places, then I must be someplace else." And he's like, and the kid's like, "Yeah, of course," and he's like, "Well, if he's someplace else, you can't be here."
Yeah.
Like, ha ha ha!
Yes.
Great.
Yep. And she talks about, so she's talking about like how different the people are here, and she's like, you know, I've never been around anyone like him, especially, you know, in LA, which is, so the whole like coastal elite snobbery. This is the reverse.
Yeah.
This is middle America snobbery,
100%.
which Odyssey is like dealing so heavily in these early episodes, and we've talked about, but just the like, even Connie as a person who's like just gotten out of LA can't believe how much better the people are here than back in her hometown. And I'm like, this is a nationally syndicated show. Kids in LA are going to listen to it.
Yeah.
What are you like?
Stop ostracizing cities.
I hate the snobbery of being like,
only the Midwest gets Christianity right.
Right. of like, you know, our way of life is so much better than everyone else's. Because also, like, they didn't choose where they're living, and there's so much validity to their experience. And you're just like, well, you're not doing it right unless you're in the middle of nowhere, and everyone you meet, you know, and everyone is white and Christian. And I'm just like, I hate this.
Yeah. No, it's unfortunate. Midwestern hospitality is a real thing. I think that it is like a cultural thing for people to be more interpersonal in that area of the country. But, I mean, there's plenty examples of that in California and on the West Coast and on the East Coast and whatever. So, you know, I think that both sides of it do have some validity where, like, okay, yeah, in LA, a waitress is a lot less inclined to ask you how your day's going, you know, compared to somebody in the Midwest. But it doesn't mean that they're not good Christians or that they can't be good people because of their geographic location.
Right. Or just the like, we are so much better than all of those people because
we're sectored off.
Because of our geography.
Yep.
And
we're untainted.
Yeah.
We just got that.
It's so
that sweet corn-fed Bible Belt living.
Yeah, it's so annoying. And yeah, and then she talks about like he's religious, but he's not the kind who would like shave his head or hang around in airports.
I think that's a Krishna joke.
Oh.
That yeah. Like that was a thing in the 80s and 90s, you know. They shaved their heads and
okay.
Yep.
Look at Andrew coming in with cultural stuff.
Hey, it was bound to happen eventually.
I was like, what is this? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I guess the modern version of that joke you'd probably make is like, you know, is not like going up and knocking on your door in a collared shirt or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like, yeah.
Bible thumping on a street corner. Although I think Whit does that at some point.
I want to see Whit now. Someone draw fan art of Whit holding "The end is near" sign.
The question
with
is,
a megaphone.
What version of Whit are you drawing? Are you drawing the new version?
Oh,
of
it definitely
Whit?
has to be the new version.
Okay.
But I want his skin to be turning red, Alex Jones style.
Oh yes, definitely. Mm-hmm. And maybe like a no to masks sign or something like that. It's like 2 things.
Yeah. Yep. Send that fan art our way. We'll put it on a shirt.
Yep.
So
Shout you out.
what'd you say?
We'll shout you out.
Yeah,
We look after each other.
Yeah. So then we jump over to Wit's End, where Connie and Wit are listening to a conversation, like a news broadcast of a hostage
Situation in Tel Aviv is Israel, correct?
Yes. So it's a wild news clip to have. It also sounds like it might be a real news clip.
Yeah, it definitely could be. I don't know.
I don't know. I genuinely I didn't do any research into this being like a real thing.
Well,
but
they
it's
don't
just,
say a lot in the context. Like, they really give you little to go off.
yes. Yep. But yeah, and then then Connie's like, if we could just get everyone into one big room and just like work all this out. And I'm like, Connie, I do appreciate your
naivety.
hopefulness and your naivety for sure. And I'm like, I wish Wit wouldn't bash it out of her.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, if there's anything the internet has showed us, it's that there are huge benefits to everyone being in the same room and cataclysmic downsides.
Yes.
And I still try and like people who follow me might be aware of this, but listed as one of my superlatives in my bios on social media is fan of the internet. Mm-hmm. And that is there as a guiding light for me to remind myself that at the end of the day, I do think these things are net positive. And I do think that like we are better because of this.
Oh, yeah. No. 100%.
However, so much of the internet sucks, and so much of us being in the same room is a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think it also is great in like providing voices to people who didn't have them already, because when everyone's in the same room, populations that were one person in a town are now significant populations. Like I love so much of what community on the internet brings. Yes. This show that we are doing right now couldn't exist without it. Like it's amazing that there are places for people who have similar thoughts and experiences to gather and like have
across
community.
The world.
Right.
Yeah.
Regardless of geography. That being said, there are bad groups that gather in that way.
Exactly.
And that sucks. And that is just like what it means to live in the modern age. But like, I think that this is interesting as a pre-internet, where this is like episode, where this is so hypothetical.
Oh, yeah.
Of just like, wouldn't it be great if we could get everyone in the same room? And I feel like only like within maybe the last 5 years are we really starting to reckon with as a society what it means to all be in the same room.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's frustrating how Wit responds to Connie and just the way that Connie's
laughs.
Yeah, he laughs, and like I don't like, I mean, when we get into the topic of like mankind's inherent issues and sin and
this
all
is
of that.
if you haven't picked up on it already, Chalk Squad, this is a total depravity of man episode.
Yes, 100%. And that's fine and good and whatnot, and there's definitely a lot of support for it. I think that the argument against it could have been presented better, but obviously that's just
right.
me
They're
being me.
never gonna do it. Like it's going to be like Connie is a child who is not a Christian, who needs to be educated by older Christian men around her.
I didn't like that sentence.
And so, but I mean, that's the premise of the show at this point.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yes.
And to some extent, even now. But like, that is so core to the show that it's like, of course it's a straw man.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, of course the argument is you haven't actually played any of these thoughts out. If you did, you'd realize they were wrong. Yeah. And it's like, there are people who have played them out and come to different conclusions.
But we can't validate that.
No.
If we're absolutely right, then everybody else is absolutely wrong.
Right. Right. And I to play my cards on the table, I do tend to like land pretty comfortably in the like mankind is not inherently good camp.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah.
I am, that is, yeah, a thing I am fairly secure in. But I also will say that that argument has led to a ton of bad stuff that I hate. So it's one of those topics that's very complicated and will try and be nuanced, but like this is like one of the core struggles in the world, like in in like any sort of philosophy.
Yes, exactly.
Is like this: are people inclined to good? Are people inclined to evil? I would say probably predominantly people are inclined to selfishness.
Yes. Yeah. And this is fun that I get to actually use something I'm learning in school, but I'm doing a class on C.S. Lewis, and we're reading Mere Christianity right now, which you've read it, presumably?
I have not read Mere Christianity. I have read 10 C.S. Lewis books. None of them are Mere Christianity.
Fair.
Full disclosure, it's 7 Narnia and 3 Space Trilogy.
I'm proud of you. Great job.
Mere Christianity. Oh, wait. No, I have read the Screw Tape Letters. Okay, so that's another one.
Letters also a
Mere
banger.
Christianity. My mom recently read it. Was talking about it like all over the holidays and whatnot. So maybe I will get around to it at some point. But
it's good. It's short, but
I like the way Lewis writes.
Yeah. Well, he spends the first book, because it's like I think it's 3 books within it, kind of establishing the idea of moral law and like the fact that the way that humans interact with each other and the way that we quarrel implies that we universally do have some sense of right and wrong and fairness in conduct, which is like definitely put there by God and supports that. But so that is always fighting against the depravity of man and selfishness. And yeah, that'll be my plug for the episode. Read Mere Christianity if you haven't. It's a very solid book. The first 5 chapters of it are very a-religious. Like he doesn't get into the Christian nitty-gritty of it until book 2, which I think is really nice because it gives it a more academic, approachable, logical kind of tone. But yeah, it was just very interesting to think about that, especially within the context of like total depravity and everything like that, where we do have these universal concepts of like standards of behavior and fairness, but also universally not following that law.
Right. It's like, do I believe in the total depravity of man? Yes. Do I always like John Piper? No.
No.
So like, we can exist in both camps.
Exactly.
Like everything, nuance.
Amen.
Then right.
of
So
nuance.
this thing continues where it's like Connie's like, if I just promise that like I will never do a thing again, then like I can then
if you just work hard enough, you can make it happen.
Yeah, so this episode is also is weirdly about like works and also keeping promises.
Yes.
But the undertone is
Total depravity.
you know what, they're doing a lot here, and they're doing it all kind of okay.
Might be generous.
It's so tough because it's like even when like Odyssey is playing in realms where I'm like theoretically more comfortable at this era, they're making choices where I'm just mad at them.
Yep. No, and it's yeah. We can talk about it at the end, but I think a lot more about what I like about this episode is the ways that it sets up for what they do in the future, like the narrative structure and all of that, the way that the characters interact, and hearing from Connie's first-person perspective of the relationships in Odyssey, I think is very cool and like distinct to the radio drama medium.
Sure, yeah. And so we get her, so she kind of vows to a month of patience.
Yep.
After she wants to do more, and Wit negotiates her down to that.
He pulls full smart goals,
and he's so smug during it because
You're gonna fail. You 14-year-old girl, you're gonna fail. You're only 14. What, you think you can be a good person? You're gonna fail.
To lift the show, we are always stealing from on a recent episode of Good Christian Fun. I believe Kevin T. Porter, though it may have been someone else, and I'm sorry if I'm misattributing, said, "We serve a smug God."
We serve a smug wit, certainly.
And that was exactly how I felt here, where I was like,
exactly.
yes, this is a smug wit.
He's dripping with smug.
And so...
the smug of war.
My word. And yeah, so she talks about then, like, how good the first few days of it were and how, like, nice that felt and whatever, and, like, I liked
and
that.
Then, yeah, and then Wit's, like, just passive-aggressively being like, it'll fail eventually.
Right.
Like, the whole time.
Yeah.
There was no, wow, you're doing a great job making some serious character improvements and trying to be more patient as a person.
And then we have Phil and Lisa. This is a different Phil from the intro Phil. This is Phil who we told the story of Madge and Guy to.
Oh,
this same Phil and Lisa. Lisa sounding very much like a boy in this scene, which cool.
Love to see it.
And I mean, no complaints here, no notes. And they are Wit's giving them riddles, and they do a math. It's
the riddle of St. Ives. So it's like all these people are going to St. Ives, blah 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 blah. They do
they're not all going to St. Ives.
No,
only you are.
Yes, you're going to St. Ives,
right?
and
these kids are like incredibly good at math, and
I'm presuming they're writing it down and doing it on paper.
Yeah, but still, like this portion of the scene is too long.
Yes,
they go through the entire math equation, say it to Wit, and he goes, no, actually, that's not right, but your math is 100% correct. And I'm just like, what are we doing here, Wit? And then he's like, actually, and then like repeats the beginning again. You know, I was going to St. Ives and I saw, and he's like, so they weren't there, or St. Ives, whatever. Yeah. So they weren't there. So you know, and then it's Connie's turn to do a riddle.
Yep.
And Connie starts out with, there's an electric train, and I wrote down in my notes, the train is electric. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Also, it's electric.
It's electric.
Boogie woogie woogie.
Amen.
So I was just like, okay, I immediately know where, because I know this like riddle scheme. We've all been there. We just did it.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, a genuine shortcoming, is that they do the same riddle structure twice.
Yeah.
There's a lot of riddle structures. You did like the one, just explain to the kids what the trick was, and then the fact that they aren't getting it this time, I'm like, come on, give these kids a little bit more credit.
Yeah.
And then Connie decides,
loses her mind.
Right.
Like,
decides
idiots.
that these kids are stupid. Rather than repeating herself in any way, she just chastises them for not being able to get it.
Yep.
And they're doing the math, and she's like, no, it's not about that. And it's like, they just did one of these. Like,
I got like low-key triggered when she said, just think. And I'm like, the amount of times that my ADHD riddled brain as a child was told, why aren't you thinking? And I'm like, I swear I was. It just wasn't about this. Or I thought about this, just not right. like, oh. And then, so Connie escalates, reveals the electric train doesn't emit smoke, haha. I can't believe you guys are so dense. And then mic drop, walk away.
There are a million ways to better show Connie not being patient than this one.
Than her insulting children? Yeah.
Like, she works in a service industry.
Yeah.
There is plenty of excuse to not be patient and to fail in that way on your goal. Instead, they go for this crazy elevated version wherein, like,
she's entirely discredited.
Right, where like nothing she's doing is good. She's fully in the wrong. And like, it's over nothing.
Yeah, it paints the picture that the evil was just pent up inside her this whole time, and eventually it just overcame her.
Andrew, you hit the nail on the head. That is my exact thought.
Yeah. Where it's like, oh, you just weren't a bad person, so you kept it all in, and now you gotta pee real bad.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's just like, is the argument that like she bottled up all this anti-patience and then just exploded?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, that's
is
kinda
the
how that works,
solution
but...
is the solution that like she needs to release be a little impatient every day so that it doesn't build up to this?
I think meditation might be a better intervention here, but
What
yeah.
is this argument?
That
And
seems to
then,
be what they're
it's also
suggesting.
it's a scene that would suck so much without the promise she was keeping.
Exactly.
There are ways to show her falter in patience and like lose out on the promise aspect of it without her being like, without her wrecking herself in all the other ways.
Yeah, like the whole promising thing, you're overextending yourself. That's
Right.
very real, and like I would
Right.
like to see an Odyssey
Especially after,
episode.
right. Especially after the first episode with Connie, she's like, is Wit getting bombarded by 10 different people at once?
Yeah.
Do that here.
Again, it'd make perfect sense.
Yeah.
I am curious as to the annoying regulars at Wit's End. Because there are good regulars and there are bad regulars, but I want to know who's annoying and who has the worst order to make.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew previously worked at the Wit's End of our town and now works at its corporate, overlord.
Yep.
You went from Wit's End to the Novacom Kids Center.
Yep, I did both. It's great. I like to walk that fine line alone.
He walks a lonely road. The only one that he has ever known.
known.
Don't know where it goes. But it's only him. He walks alone. Bow-now, 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 bow-now.
Yeah. So, and obviously this Connie blowing up gets transformed into Wit dressing her down and just being like, well, we can't make make the world without...
Cracking a few eggs.
Yeah, we can't make the world a better place because we're all inherently bad and we need to, find Jesus for things to be better. Which, fair, true, wonderful. I believe in, the full reconciliation of the world through Christ. I don't know if that's what we need to be telling the 14-year-old right now.
Hey, Andrew, you want to perform this scene? The two of us? We've done this before.
Yes, we
You scroll
have.
down to the quotes. I want you to be Connie.
Okay.
I'm going to be Wit. We're going to do this because this scene is seared into my mind. There are so many quotes that I was quoting along with this scene and I was like, I cannot believe this is where we're at.
I'm terrified of myself in this
My
moment.
word. You see, Connie, you believe that deep down everyone is good, and if we all just somehow tap into that inner goodness, we can make the world a whole lot nicer. Well, I'm sorry, but that's just not the case. The Bible says that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. That's why I just shake my head and laugh when I hear someone make a promise to be a better person. That's like treating the symptoms and ignoring the disease.
What about promising to God to be a better person? What? Or grace or any of that?
Yeah, the talk downedness snobbery of Wit being like, I just shake my head and laugh when I hear someone promise to be better.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that sucks, Wit.
Yeah, right? And what are you...
I think that, and I also think that saying that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, while 100% true, is not the
same.
argument you're
Yeah.
trying to make here.
Yeah. The argument...
You can be a sinful person and still be striving to do good.
Yes, 100%.
Because we all are sinful people.
Yeah, and the ones of us are striving to do good.
And I think, whether or not it is, knowing it is not ultimate goodness, I do believe in, people striving to do good outside of, Christ and the church and whatever. I think that that humans are inherently selfish thing is a thing that you can fight back against without God. I don't think that you're ultimately successful in that. I don't think that that's what saves you.
Yeah.
But I don't think that having a relationship with God is the only way to have
Make
a
the world a
positive
better place.
impact
Yeah.
on the world.
Yeah. Which is, yeah, and that's what I wrote in my notes, where I was like, I just feel like this is very, again, painted with broad strokes in the fact that, like, you can't make the world a better place unless you're a Christian, and that just denies the fact that, like, secular organizations do what the church should be doing, and,
Yeah.
yeah, like,
Yeah, no, it's
like,
like-
who are the hands and feet of Christ? Like, the people that are sitting in pews on Sundays, or the people that are, like, you know, serving the homeless and everything like that. Like,
right. And it's like
there's a place for both, but you can't just
Yeah.
say that if you're not in this camp, then you can't do
Right.
anything.
Right, and without making this, like, turning this into a, like, Calvinism free will argument, which I do not want to go down.
Oy.
But like, but
Speaking
just
of
that,
the
like,
ESV,
but being able to be like, if a person saves another person's life, like, that counts.
yeah,
Like, that is not like the, and I think that, like, there are people who, like, the Bible holds out of, like, even the pagans will, like, give up their own life for a friend,
Yeah.
like, potentially. And, like, there is good that can come of such things. I am not, like, I get really frustrated with the people who make the arguments of, like, you know, without, like,
only Christian charity work is valuable,
or
essentially.
only, like, the only, like, understanding from a larger picture, like, it's true that, like, all good things are coming through God because,
Yes,
like,
yes.
he's in control.
Yes.
But also being, like, on a, like, if we're talking on an individual level, people who are like, stuff is only good if it comes from a Christian. And I'm like, nah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of bad things come from Christians too. I'm so sorry.
Amen. Unfortunate.
Yeah,
But amen.
well, I mean, it's almost like that's the point that they made earlier in the fact that, like, everybody does have a hard time, you know, being perfect, which is very true and real.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it feeds into the narrative of, like, once you're a Christian, you are obligated to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be because you have God on your side.
Yeah.
And, like, that's very real. That's important. I believe that, like, yes, God is what helps you, like, and what drives all of that personal growth.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's lacking our favorite nuance. And
yeah, I want to continue on in this scene here between us, because, like, there's more stuff I want to get to that I think is better here.
Yes.
That we're coming up on, but it'll be, yeah. So, Connie, take it away.
oh, I'm so sorry.
It's like
But you
treating
can't
the
just-
symptoms and ignoring the disease.
But you can't just sit back and do nothing. I mean, doesn't the Bible say that the Lord helps those who help themselves?
No, it doesn't. Besides, I'm not talking about doing nothing. I'm just saying that the cause of the problem runs a lot deeper than a simple promise can reach, no matter how good your intentions are. I think this sets up this weird false dichotomy where it's like, either you are a Christian and able to do good, or you are a pagan and making a promise you can't keep.
Yep.
And I'm like,
What?
excuse me, what? Like, I
How did these
understand in
become
this
mistakes?
instance, Connie made a promise, and that, like, that she wasn't able to keep, but I don't think that that's why people can't do good. Like, this weird false equivalency thing just really, really baffled me.
Yeah, it's...
Like, I don't know why we mix the messages of total depravity of man and keeping promises into an episode.
I mean, only Odyssey, only Focus could do such things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even hate Witt's argument that, like, if you want to change on the outside, you need to examine
So
the inside.
This is what I want to get to.
Yeah, so I was right when I said that it was hopeless.
No, there's hope. Lots of it. You're just putting it in the wrong place. You've got to look deep down on the inside, way down into your soul. That's where the changing has to start. That's why the Bible says, don't be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. that means is we have to let God renew our mind. He's got to change us on the inside before results start showing on the outside.
That's an excellent point.
Right. It's like, I hate you, John Avery Whitaker, for bringing it home.
Yeah. Like what?
Like, this is a great argument for, like, just like Connie being like, so it's hopeless, and him being like, no, there is hope. Mm-hmm. But you can't just like pull yourself up by your bootstraps in order to get there. Like, it's honestly, I think that argument is as applicable, if not more applicable, to Christians than to the secular world.
That was what I was alluding to earlier, where I said that, like, you feel like you have to be perfect because you've been changed or whatever.
Right.
Like, you are saved.
Right, or just being like, doing these works is what's going to... Right, I can just push myself to be better because of what I believe. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it has to be like this, like, it has to be a change from the inside out. And I love that Whit's saying that here. Yeah. But it could be directed towards, like, I think only directing it towards Connie somewhat misses the point. Yes. Which is like, we all need to be aware of this, of like, we can't do anything without like God changing us on the inside. Yeah, like, we're always going to be acting on our own motives and in the end, like, and ultimately fail. Yeah. Even if we do good in the meantime. And I think the problem so much with the church is we can tend to then, because of that statement, undervalue doing good in the meantime.
Exactly. Yes, definitely. Where, I really, I agree with what you're saying. Like, I'm mad that Whit he lands on a good note. The way that he gets to it is frustrating. I think there's an interesting point to be made about the fact that what Christianity does is not trying to shoehorn its way into your life, but rather to get you to choose it instead. So it's not a don't do this, it's a do this instead. And that's what I think is missing in the Whit's argument, where it's like, oh yeah, so you can't just white knuckle your way through personal change because you have to actually engage in the process. But like, when it talks about, looking down into your soul and everything like that, I think what it's neglecting is the fact that what God has to offer is objectively better. And it is the way that brings the most peace, joy, love, patience, kindness, all the other fruits of the Spirit. Yeah. Gentleness and self-control. I don't know if I got them all. Please fact check me.
Tweet at Andrew which fruit of the Spirit he left out. Did he miss your favorite one?
Let us know. We'll make a smoothie. It is very interesting. I particularly like the verse in the Bible. I think it's Jesus talking to Peter, I want to say, where he says, like, if you love me, keep my commandments. Where it's like, it's predicated on this relationship and you are choosing something else.
Right. We are not calling the world to the standards of the church.
Yes, exactly. And we're actively choosing something else. We're not forcing it into our own lives and just being like, okay, so we live in light of this knowledge, so we are equipped with the power to be able to change everything and just white knuckle our way through it, which is what I grew up believing.
Right. And what is so easy to fall into now. Like,
exactly.
That's, even if it's like, even if I have that like intellectual understanding that's not what's going on,
you feel that way.
Right. It's so hard to avoid.
Yes. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, no, it's an episode, I'll tell you what. For not being that long, it certainly left its mark on me.
For sure. And yeah, it's funny, like, that part of, like, so the bit that Whit quotes there is Romans 12:2, half of the verse. Yeah. But like, that is a verse that I know very well and that has been very important to me over the years. And I'm like, how much of that is because of this though? How much of he leaves off the second half, but like how much of that phrasing is seared in my mind because of listening to Odyssey?
Oh, 100%. No, I like in the same way that the first time I learned the Lord's Prayer and had to memorize it was at Vacation Bible School, and it used different wording, and now every time I recite the Lord's Prayer, whether it's in, Catholic Mass or in church or whatever, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
It's the these or the those or the trespasses or the
right.
Sins,
oh yeah.
debts.
The one that I recently ran into because I've been reading Psalms recently is Psalms 23, where I'm like, I have the whole thing memorized. I have no idea what version I have it memorized in. I was like flipping between a bunch and was like, none of these are the same.
Yeah.
I might have just like mashed them together.
Yep. We've blended them all together.
Yeah.
In our adolescent subconscious.
Hey, but you know what? It counts. The word of God can transcend versions.
Amen. I certainly hope so. Otherwise, I don't think any.
Yeah.
Well,
not the message. It can transcend versions, but not
Except-
paraphrases.
Yes. NLT, I'm looking at you. The amount of NLT and message slander at LBC is ridiculous.
The number of times I have heard the message isn't a translation, it's a paraphrase by people thinking they're being original is atrocious. I also would not recommend that the message is the only Bible you read.
No, certainly not.
But it's understanding that different things have different tools for different times.
Yes, and that we are gifted with, technology and the Bible app, and we can look at all of them and see the differences. Like,
It's true.
Now more than ever, I feel like we should be more willing to understand the different values of different translations.
Yeah.
But, never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah. So the thing that this ends on, unless you've got something that you need to beat me to here,
go for it.
is Connie saying, Marcy, there's something different about these people, which is every 90s to, it was probably just every conservative Christian kid growing up just is so turned on by that statement.
Yeah. They just look at me and know something's different.
That is the that and martyrdom are the two things that Christian kids were have been brought up on.
Yeah.
Of just everyone around me hates me because I'm a Christian, and they see that I'm different because I'm a Christian, and it's us against the world, and just all this stuff that's so frustrating. And so I was just like, oh my word, it's it's the writer, it's Phil Lawler's fantasy fulfillment writing this down in here.
Yeah.
But that's the episode then.
That's it. Yep. Love Connie.
Yeah.
This is how she signs off. She's thinking about staying a while.
Yeah.
And we get the Chris outro where Phil shows up and loosely apologizes for promising, and then it jumps right into the credits.
Man, I wish Phil would show up at the end of one of our episodes and loosely apologize.
That would be incredible.
Oh man. The other thing that we need to address in this episode, per the
wiki and guide.
Yep. This episode initially did not have the train scene, the riddle scene.
Okay.
That was recorded later to replace a Harley scene.
Oh! Okay.
Initially, Connie lost her patience when Tom and Harley couldn't make up their minds on smoothie flavors.
See, that makes so much more sense.
Yes. I just think it's hilarious that this is what they re-recorded.
They were so concerned about the police's public image and indecisiveness regarding smoothies.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yeah. So
Gotta protect the boys in blue.
I wish, amen. I wish I could find that audio. That would be very fun because it did air. It aired once with that version, and then they re-aired it later that year with the edited version, and that's the only one that we've had ever since.
Oh, man.
Yep.
Oh. I didn't realize it was that quickly afterwards. I figured it was the
No, it's
grand
January
Harley
2nd
sweep.
to October 1st.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, I do believe in my heart that episode is better than this one.
Yes.
But from our frustrations with the train scene, but that everything else fundamentally is, we have the same frustrations.
Yep.
Oh, man. And I think that's all.
Yeah, that's all. What did we learn today, Dylan?
We learned that we don't trust Phil Lawler to do good representation of the depravity of man. That's just gonna be hard.
Shocking.
We
note.
learned that that just focus in this era can't get outside the us versus themness of Christians versus the world.
Gotta love
And
that.
coastals versus middle America, and all of the other weird stuff that they've got going on.
Yeah.
And we learned that, if you try and practice a virtue and you fully abstain for it, eventually you'll just bottle up and explode.
Yep.
So you should only
It's like
practice
pee.
your virtues in moderation.
Virtue is stored in the balls.
Amen to that.
Yeah. We learned that Whit likes riddles an awful lot.
It's true.
And that Connie... Oh, and that Tom is physically incapable of understanding everyday situations.
Also true. And I've got a final note if you're cool with it. I'm not plugging anything. I feel like we plugged throughout the episode. You've got your Mere Christianity plug. I don't know which of my plugs I'm leaving in. I think I cut most of them at this point, but maybe there's a plug earlier. If there is, you'll see it in the link in the description. But importantly, we've got a new review.
Hot dog!
This
Five whole
is
stars?
5-star review
Woohoo!
from user Funny Peeps.
Love it.
The nostalgia trip I didn't know I needed. I discovered this pod a few days ago and I'm hooked. If you grew up listening to AIO, you know it can sometimes be hard to find others who did and share those experiences with. This podcast is that friend. It's been lovely to revisit Wits End all these years later, and I really appreciate the host's thoughtful critique and recap of the show. I'm binging the Blackguard series currently and would highly recommend this show to anyone who spent their childhood immersed in Odyssey.
Oh, that was a really good one.
Yeah.
That was really good. If
So-
that was my friend from work, thank you.
Thank you,
And
Funny.
if that wasn't, then leave a review. Leave a 5-star review.
Thank you so much, Funny Peeps. And
Yeah, seriously.
eventually when you binge and you get caught up to this point, yeah, we appreciate you.
Yeah.
We appreciate you listening to this episode.
Definitely.
And the show at large. And that goes to all of you
Yeah.
who are listening, but especially those who leave us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts.
And those who pay $3 a month for bonus content.
Yeah, we love you the most.
It's true. Oh, goodness.
All right. Well, with all that being said, we will be back next week to talk about episode 24. Gotcha!
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Wad Fam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lids Podcast Co-op. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at WadFamChalkPod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. Promises was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Acebo, and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.